G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome back for another installment in our Warhammer 40,000 10th edition for the New Guy series. G'day ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the ATWN with myself and Jake for another For the New Guy video looking at some of the more popular detachments in the game of Warhammer 40,000 for those who may be getting into the game or wanting to start a new army. And it's been really good to look at some of these detachments and chat through a bit more of the nuance and also share the information about what these detachments are about as well. And we're jumping into the third Space Marine detachment today from the Codex, which is going to be Stormlance Task Force. And Jake plays Stormlance Task Force on the regular, so I'm excited to hear his thoughts when we jump into it. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us here on YouTube, whether you've been liking, sharing, subscribing, leaving comments on our videos. Really do appreciate all the engagement and support you do provide us here at the ATWN with the videos and content we do create for you guys. But without further ado, let's jump into talking about the Stormlance Task Force. Jake, I'll let you start off with your initial thoughts.
Hey Scotty, hey everybody, good to be here. Look, I'll be very biased towards this. So no, if I can give an unbiased point on the Stormlance Task Force, I think it's very strong, especially if you're using it to do wolf jail like I do. But just the army on a whole is still very competitive.
Yeah, definitely agree. It is probably up there. It's probably in the top 3 competitive Space Marine detachments from the Codex. I would say the 2 that we've already covered, Gladius and Vanguard, would probably be the other 2 in that top 3. I'm not sure how the rankings would sit off the top of my head, but I think Stormlance is definitely in the top 3, just because of what it gives you in terms of a tool set, as well as just the raw power of its detachment rule and what you're able to do in the stratagem suite and the buffs that you get from the enhancements. I think it's a really well put together detachment, and you can make use of it really, really well, particularly with Space Wolves. So I reckon let's jump on into it. Do you want to start off with the detachment rule, mate?
Yeah, so Stormlance Task Force, the detachment rule is Lightning Assault. Advance or fall back and charge on every one of your units.
Yeah, this is
now it's the creme de la creme of the detachment, basically. Having your entire army being able to move, advance, and then still charge, and then once you're in combat, still being able to fall back and charge is massive, especially for some of the bonuses that you get with and synergies you get with different units for that.
Yep. 100% agree. Basically, this is a Space Marine lieutenant on steroids across your army. Because typical lieutenant gives you fallback, shoot, and charge. This gives you advance and fallback and charge. Like, it's just chef's kiss. Honestly, like it's just so good. With the right units, you can get so much mobility, and you can really just trap people with combat, especially if they don't like to be in combat.
Yeah, exactly. Armies like Guard do not like Stormlance.
Yes, they do not. Jumping in to some of the enhancements that you'll be able to make use of. First one we've got is Fury of the Storm. It is a mounted model only, so you'll see that as a little bit of a theme within the detachment. Melee weapons of the bearer have +1 strength and an additional -1 AP. When the bearer finishes a charge move, it's increased to +2 strength and an additional -2 AP.
Yeah, now this enhancement's nearly an auto take, I'd have to say. It's usually on a Wolf Lord most of the time to give either his Power Fist or his Thunderhammer that +2 strength, +2 AP on the charge, which is unreal because you're going to AP 4, strength 10.
Yeah.
Which is just it's awesome. Paired with some of the other things like +1 to wound and that, you can just be punching through big armor.
Yeah, it's really strong in my opinion. Next up, you've got Portents of Wisdom. Reroll advance rolls for the bearer's unit. So if you're wanting to have something that's guaranteed to get a decent advance roll when you are advancing and charging, this is a pretty decent enhancement.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You don't see it used all that often unless you've got the points left over. Then you can chuck it in there just to give you that extra little bit of spice.
Yep. Next up, you've got Fainting Withdrawal. Fall back and shoot for the bearer's unit. So you get the full suite you get fallback for shooting and charging, and you also get advance and charge.
Yeah, which is another one that's a bit of a funny one. I mean, when you're taking Stormlance, you're usually using a lot of melee units, so it's not that common. But with the change to Outriders now, it can definitely see some play. Being able to fall back and shoot with your Outriders, definitely.
Yeah, particularly if you've got an ATV in the unit as well.
Yeah, and that chappy in there to give you the spicy dev wounds on your shooting is just amazing.
Yeah, and the last one is Hunter's Instincts. Mounted model only. If the bearer's unit is put into strategic reserves, it can be set up on the battlefield, treating the current battle round as one higher. So what this means, to explain it a little bit for those newer players who are watching, with strategic reserves, you're not allowed to come in turn 1. When you come in turn 2, you're not allowed to come in from strategic reserves into your opponent's deployment zone. From turn 3 onwards, you can come into anywhere on the battlefield as long as it's not your opponent's table edge, I believe, from memory. But you can come into their deployment zone. What this stratagem does is it means that you can count turn 1 as turn 2. So you're able to come in turn 1. For turn 2, you count as turn 3. So turn 2, you can be in your opponent's backfield.
Yeah, that's correct. It's really funny when you put that on a Wolfguard battle leader with 6 Thunderwolves, and and next thing you're coming in turn 2 in their backfield. It's not a good day for them.
Yeah, definitely not. So I think overall, I think you've got 2 really strong enhancements in Fury of the Storm and Hunter's Instincts. The other 2 really depends on whether you got the points. Or the units that you're taking in your list where you really want to make use of that, as you were saying, Jake, the feigning withdrawal on the chaplain in a unit of Outriders within an ATV in there as well. Really beef up that unit to full 8-man. Yeah, I think that's got some play as well.
Yeah. And one thing, probably just to backpedal a little bit and mention on that Fury of the Storm, the enhancement is for melee weapons. So it doesn't just count for the bearer's single weapon; it counts for the extra wolf attacks if it's on a wolf lord as well. So it's really funny, that extra 2 AP and 2 strength on the 3 strike attacks you get with the wolf at the end.
Yeah, that's a solid buff and a solid pickup as well. Yeah, really, really strong.
Yeah, look, it took me 10 games to pick that up, but we got there.
Yeah.
Over to the stratagems. I'll take this one, Scotty, off you. Armor of Contempt. 1 CP. Look, we probably don't need to go through this one again. It's pretty straightforward. Just, neg 1 AP in either shooting and melee for 1 unit. That's just the biggest thing that you have to remember. The change now is that it's just for 1 unit's activation, not multiple to the end of the phase.
Next up, we've got Blitzing Fusillade. 1 CP. I actually quite like this one before I even jump into it. It depends on the units you're taking, but I think it's really good.
It does.
During your shooting phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit's ranged weapons gain the assault ability until the end of the phase. If it already has that ability, they gain sustained hits 1. Bit of context for me, I'm a big Sternguard player. So the Sternguard have assault on their weapons. Giving a sustained hits 1 for a CP every day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're trying to get more attack to give you the more opportunity for dev wounds. This thing's money for jam. The funniest interaction that I find is that when you have it on 10 Wolfen that can advance and then use 10d6, so the blast plus the sustained 1. There's no AP, but it's just bunches of punches. If you're putting that onto a 10-man infantry unit, it's just ridiculous. 10d6 plus 10 with sustained 1 with oath possibly. Fish for those 6s out of those misses is really solid. For 1 CP is just that's really good. It's a funny interaction. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're hitting on 5s, but you're just rolling. Yep. Next one's Full Throttle. And this is a personal favorite of mine. For 2 CP, during your movement phase, an Adeptus Astartes infantry unit or vehicle, excluding walkers, that chooses to make an advance, instead of rolling, adds 6 inches to its movement characteristics, or 9 inches if it is a mounted keyword. Advancing 9 inches with a Thunderwolf Cav unit, or now Outriders, now that we'll see them pretty regularly as well, is just unbelievable. Yep.
It's important to note that the Outriders no longer have their automatic advance, so this stratagem becomes a lot more useful. I think it's really good with a Wolf Lord unit where you can reduce the CP cost to 1 to be able to go cool for 1 CP. You move those additional 9 on top of your base movement is just really good.
Yeah, and look, very rarely do I use it without the Wolf Lord, because 2 CP in this game these days, especially when you got such good stratagems in this detachment, is really hard to give up. So the 1 CP with the Wolf Lord is just money for jam.
Yep, 100% agree. Next up, we've got the Shock Assault stratagem for 1 CP. During your charge phase, an Adeptus Astartes mounted unit can reroll the charge distance, and its melee weapons have the Lance ability until the end of the turn. Oh, baby.
Yeah, so this paired with your Wolf Lord with its enhancement, with the +2 strength, +2 AP, Lance, it's great. Also, yeah, it's just good. I use this one a lot, and yeah, it's good. The reroll charge is good too. There's a lot of times that I've had a 6-inch charge and failed the first one. It comes in handy.
Yeah. Having that extra reroll in the pocket to be able to go, cool, I don't have to spend my 1 CP reroll for this one unit. If you've got multiple charges, you already know, cool, I can reroll the charge here. I don't have to stress about spending that CP.
Yeah, exactly. Next one is Ride Hard, Ride Fast, 1 CP. During your opponent's shooting phase, an Adeptus Astartes mounted or fly vehicle unit that was just selected as the target of a ranged attack. Until the end of the phase, any ranged attacks targeted neg1 to hit and neg1 to wound. Again, another great stratagem for either your Outriders or your Thunderwolf Cav, or if you've got a single mounted unit kicking around, that neg1 to hit and neg1 to wound is massive on survivability.
I think it's also got some interesting play if you're taking any gladiators or the Storm Strike or Hammer Strike speeders, because having them stick around to be able to provide longer range firepower as your assault units go in, if you're taking them in a Stormlance, this helps with their survivability a lot more than what, say, popping smoke would.
Exactly, and for an army like Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum, if they're hitting on 4s with most things, you're putting them to 5s, or with their +1 to hit, you're putting them back to their innate 4s. But also that neg1 to wound is even bigger.
100%. And then the last stratagem we've got is Windswift Evasion for 1 CP. During your opponent's movement phase, if the enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of an Adeptus Astartes unit, that Adeptus Astartes unit can make a normal move up to 6 inches. You cannot select a unit that is within engagement range of any enemy units. So that's been a pretty staple end of statement restriction for any reactive moves, is you just can't do it when you're within engagement range. But being able to go basically at the end of your opponent's movement phase, or during your opponent's movement phase, you've got that reactive move of 6 inches, and I don't believe it's locked as well. It's not locked like some of the other ones to mounted or infantry. This one allows you to pick any unit as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the only thing that you do have to watch out for is it's after your opponent moves a unit, so they can sort of strategically move one unit and then move another, and you have to figure out when you're actually going to use it correctly there. But it's a common theme we start to see through quite a lot of detachments, is they have that strat where you can move the 6 out of the way, and it's very handy.
Another way you could use it is also offensively. You move that 6 inches forward, and then you go, cool, I've got a Wolfguard Battle Leader in the unit, you've just shot at me, Blood Surge.
Yeah, exactly. The Wolfguard Battle Leader has the ability to, with the Blood Surge, while leading Thunderwolf Cav, and yeah, it's great. I use it a lot.
Yeah, it is once per game, but you combo it with this to really hit some units. Your opponent maybe goes, oh, I didn't want to be in combat with Thundercav.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Starting to collect your first army for Warhammer 40,000 can be quite expensive. Between the miniature box sets for your new force, all the tools and the paints and the paintbrushes and the glue and the basing materials to get them tabletop ready so you're able to play games, all adds up, in addition to adding the codexes and rule books that you need to have on hand to even play the game. It adds up to being a lot that you need to start off with. Add into that you need to be playing on tables with terrain as well. So you're not playing on planet bowling ball, as we like to call it in the scene, where there's no terrain at all. And depending on what you decide to go with, can cost several hundreds of dollars more on top of grabbing your army and all the resources you need to get that army onto the table. But that doesn't need to be the case. And this is where today's sponsor, Tip Top Terrain, comes into the picture. Now, Tip Top Terrain is an Australian-based company that has designed affordable laser-cut MDF terrain that doesn't compromise on quality, as well as neoprene gaming bats and terrain bases, gaming tokens, and much more. Their MDF terrain is available in both the Games Workshop Pariah Nexus format to match the Pariah Nexus terrain layouts, or the World Team Champions terrain style that you can choose from as well. These sets are easy to assemble and store, either storing them fully assembled or disassembled depending on your storage needs. They also have several neoprene gaming mat designs that have got the Pariah Nexus deployment maps already marked out on them, so they are able to save you some time at the start of your games as well. Now, if you want to support an Australian business that actively supports the wider Warhammer 40k community here in Australia, then make sure to check them out. The links down below in the description. Have a look at the terrain that they have available, the gaming mats, and the other products that they have that you can purchase from them. And a massive thank you to Tip Top Terrain for sponsoring today's video. All right, so do you want to run through the 1,000-point army list that we've got for the Stormlance?
Yes, I would. So our 1,000-point Stormlance list that we've come up with is start off with a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf with Fury of the Storm, which is the enhancement for the +2 strength and AP, which he'll pair with 6 Thunderwolf Cav. You've got a Lieutenant with Portents of Wisdom, which is giving you the reroll advance rolls, which he could be on his own, or he'll have to go on his own, won't he? I suppose you can pair with the some intercessors there.
Yeah.
He's a standard lieutenant. You've got the 2x5 intercessors for your sticky objectives. 5 assault intercessors with jump packs, which are great utility unit, plus moving to 12, then being able to advance and charge, and having the mortals that they give on the charge, a really good utility piece. We got the Invicta Warsuit, which is a funny unit for the Stormlance, because you can, I think it's scout 8 and then move 10 and then advance and then charge. So you don't even have to advance it if you don't want to. You can get your shooting off, but also if you use the strat giving you a weapons assault, you can scout it, move it, advance it, 1 CP, shoot it, and then charge. So it makes them very good. Your 5 Reavers, which are good for their battle shock shenanigans. 3 Outriders to round off the list, which will give you 980 points.
So yeah, I think this list works well. I mean, we were talking about this one a little bit. We did change it pre-recording. The idea, the Wolf Lord is your warlord as well. The lieutenant does go in with the one of the 5-man units of intercessors. The reason why he's got Portents of Wisdom is with the new intercessor ability, they've got assault on their weapons already, so you can guarantee how far they are, or you can somewhat increase how far they move. So you can, with that re-rolling of the advance roll, you can guarantee that a bit more consistently, so you're able to put 20 bolt rifle shots into something that's infantry that you need to kill pretty easily at 24-inch range. So it means they've got some staying power, and then you can use the other 5 elsewhere. Is the kind of the idea there. Wolf Lord with Thundercav, of course, is a staple take. Reavers, now we'll get into the cost in a second, but there's kind of some stuff you can do with these guys. You can either have them as Reavers or as another unit we'll talk about that does come in the combat patrol we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I think this is quite a good solid starting point. You've got some utility units for secondaries and scoring. You've got some decent combat threat in the Wolf Cav and the Outriders and the Invicta Warsuit. I think the only thing you're maybe missing is some range shooting, but I think when you go up to 2000, if you really want to add that in, you can. But I think you're going to have enough when you use the Thunder Cab to go and hit the big thing first and deal with the big thing, and then go from there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you look at most bigger competitive Stormlance lists, there's not a whole lot of shooting these days. It really sinks into melee. So the only thing that I could think of that you would like potentially really change there is having the 20 points extra already, maybe dropping the lieutenant with your extra enhancement, and maybe adding in that Wolfguard battle leader just to get the blood surge and the lethals with your Wolflord and your 6 Thunderwolf, just to really get the most out of that unit. But other than that, the rest of it's pretty solid.
Yeah, and there's a reason why we've got Lieutenant in there as well, which we'll get into now.
Which is, yeah, absolutely.
So for the box set cost for this army, if you were to pick up what is here, you've got the Space Wolf Combat Patrol, which comes with the Lieutenant, 10 Intercessors, 5 Reavers, and the Invicta Warsuit. Now, as I was saying, the Reavers can actually be built as Hounds of Morkai. So if you want something that's going to do something against Psychers in particular, like Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, Demons, that will do something into those, you can build them as the Hounds of Morkai. I believe they're basically the same points, or 10 points a bit more expensive, so you've got the points in the list if you want to take them. I just think the Reavers add a bit more utility in the list, but if you want to add the Hounds instead for some flavor, feel free. The box set does cost 260 Australian dollars, or if you get it online, 206, which is still really great value, I'll add, for what you get. You've got the Wolflord on Thunderwolf. He's 81, or he's a direct order only discount at 5% off for $77. You've then got 5 Intercessors with jump packs. They're $100 or $79 online. You've got 3 Outriders for 105 or 83 online, or Outriders were in the starter set in the previous edition and the some of the other smaller starter sets after Indomitus, so you can actually find them quite cheap on the secondhand market, new on Sprue, very easily if you're not wanting to buy just the solo kit, because they are just monopose, they are the one style kit, so there's no changes in them between what you would have gotten in the starter sets compared to the individual box. And then you've got the 2 units of 3 Thunderwolf Cavalry for $105 per kit from Games Workshop, or $83 from online retailers at the roughly 20% off. So your total, you're sitting at just over $750, $756, or if you go online through other retailers and buy, swap, and sell, it can be a lot cheaper, sitting at around 611. Could be less, could be a little bit more, but that's kind of your ballpark there in Australian dollars, which I think is still great value, that you can get a relatively competitive list with starting with the Combat Patrol and then adding the bigger combat threats. Yeah,
exactly. For $206 and you get basically half the army. It's really good. And then also, like Scotty was saying, with the Outriders, they came in the Imperium mag, I think, and I forget what the other one was, but I know it was the 2 sets made up 3, and that would take you to $40. So if you could find that set, which would be very difficult at the moment, but if you could find the 2 Imperium mags for $40, you're laughing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I might start with my thoughts on Stormlance before we jump into your thoughts, Jake, being the player who plays it most of the time. I think Stormlance is really good. As I said at the start, it's in the top 3. I think its tools, it has got a lot in its toolbox to make use of. Sure, it's very geared towards mounted units and combat. That's why Space Wolves have excelled using this detachment, because of their Thunderwolf Cav. If you were using regular Space Marines, you'd kind of be restricted to just running Outriders, Invader ATVs kind of things. And yes, you can get utility with having a chaplain on bike with those units, but you're limited to just having the chaplain on bike. So I think Space Wolves allows you a lot more flexibility, a lot more power when it comes to running Stormlance, and that's why I think it's excelling really well. I think in terms of picking up this detachment as a newer player, it's not as complex as what the Vanguard Spearhead was, but I think it is still a little bit harder to pick up than Gladius, because you've got to know how to position your charges and where you're positioning your units to set yourself up for future turns. So there's that little bit of an additional learning curve to it, but it's not a massively technical learning curve like what Vanguard was.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said at the start, my thoughts always going to be biased towards this attachment. I definitely think it's in the top three with the Space Marine detachments. The survivability of giving you the neg 1 to hit and wound, being able to advance you guys up the board really quickly, the advance and charge to get them up there really quickly. You're getting things in people's face like turn 1, maybe turn 2, or yeah, you're staging turn 1 and then having turn 2 as you go time, while you get a little bit of shooting off. It's got a lot of tools, and it makes a melee, space wolf focused army very good in this detachment.
Yeah. Definitely agree, and that's why Wolf Jail's kind of come to the top. Not necessarily like fully to the top of the meta, but it's definitely like up there in the top 10 most competitive lists at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's since the start, when we started using Space Wolves in this detachment to now, I think the most competitive lists have cost about 350 points roughly, if you're using all Thunderwolves. So it does hurt a bit, but yeah, it's still up there at that like 50, maybe 55, 54% win rate, somewhere there. So still doing very well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is going to wrap up our review of the Stormlance Task Force, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we hope that you enjoyed today's video looking at the Stormlance Task Force from the Space Marine Codex. It's a really solid detachment, as we've saying, and we've hoped that you've learned a lot about it if you are looking to pick up Space Marines and play Stormlance, particularly if you like Space Wolves, or if you're wanting to know a bit more about what other Space Marine detachments are able to do, or if you're wanting to know about what opposing forces can pull against you. This is a really great example for that, talking a bit more about the Space Wolf side of things, with Wolf Jail being quite competitive and stuff at the moment. This gives you a bit of knowledge on how to play against them, maybe. But if you have enjoyed today's video, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to leave a like. If you have any comments you want to add, or any thoughts of your own, or any questions, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below. If you want to catch more of our content here for the For New Guys series, or any of the other content we create here on the ATWN, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified as to when we are releasing more content here on the network. Also, if you want to join us on a weekly basis, join us for some hobbying streams, or also, some tournament previews, tournament coverage, where you can ask questions and stuff and see some excerpts from the Australian Warhammer 40k competitive scene. Feel free to head over to Twitch and follow us at the Australia's TWN Twitch channel, where we do those streams, and you can hang out, you can chat with myself, ask questions, or find out about the tournaments that are happening across the Australian East Coast for the upcoming tournament season this year. And as per usual, I want to thank all of our financial contributors, whether you support us as YouTube members, as Twitch subscribers, or as Ko-Fi members as well. Your financial support really does allow us to do a lot more than what we would be able to without it. And if you do want to consider supporting us, feel free to do so here on YouTube. It's either $4.99 or $9.99 at the different membership levels. They're the same membership levels at the Ko-Fi members as well, or you can use your Twitch sub that will get you that highest tier of support. But also feel free to use those Twitch primes. Don't let Bezos do some dumb things with that Bezos box that you're not using. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to catch you in the next one.